hanging out in Pennsylvania, having a blast, checking out these different recumbent trikes. These are specially built by Electric Bike Technologies. They take Sunseeker frames and they mount their kits onto them, and they do a really, really good job, and they're able to hit decent price point. We were just looking at this one earlier. This is the Eco Delta, and now we're looking at the Eurus. And this thing is similar in the sense that you can see the seats raised a little bit, and it's got two wheels in the back, one wheel up front, two wheels in the back, one wheel up front. The difference being kind of the handlebar setup, and that this one's 7-speed, and it's a very similar motor, but a 36 volt 10 amp hour pack versus 4810. This one's going to offer about 45 Newton meters of torque versus, closer to 21. This is 20 speed, 20 mile per hour top speed versus 26 to 28, depending on who's riding and what the conditions are. This thing is phenomenal, and it's designed to be, ridden a little bit faster. You can see back here that the wheels are kind of angled in. I guess that's the camber. And it's a 24 speed instead of just 7. We've also got much nicer drivetrain hardware, SRAM X4, 8 sprockets in the rear, 3 up front. It's tons of fun to ride this thing, and it definitely feels a little bit quicker. I think even the tires, they're higher PSI rating on these. I think it's up towards 100, and they're 20 by 1.25. So, you compare that to these, it's like 1.5, 40 to 65 PSI. So they're a little bit, softer, a little bit fatter, but not as efficient and quick as this. Both of these trikes only come in kind of one frame size, but the seat can slide backwards, and there's some adjustability that way. I was looking at this earlier. It doesn't seem to have kind of the boom, like extension, like this one does, but that's actually going to stiffen up the frame. That's part of what makes it feel a little bit quicker, and even it just kind of raising up that head tube piece there. It's neat to look at these side by side. You can see the chain. There's a little wheel there kind of raising it. It does drop a little bit lower in the back, so it can be deceptive. I mean, that's about as high as a derailleur on a traditional bicycle, but because it's right there in the middle, if you run over something that's kind of high, it might kind of flick that back. And it is on a spring, so it's designed to kind of bounce out of the way. But that's one thing I would keep an eye on when you're riding. I want to call out these 20-inch wheels. In this case, they even have the stainless eyelets and nipples on the rear wheels as well as the front, though this has 12 gauge spoke versus 14, so extra thick, extra sturdy, and those eyelets are designed so that the rim doesn't split. It's just a big step up. So, $24.35 price point on this one versus like $18.35 on this one. So, you're paying a little bit of extra money, but you potentially get that higher speed and better performance. A lot of the rest of it's very similar, though. You've got this nice kind of a vented seat, very comfortable, a little bit more upright than on some of the tadpole trikes, which they also sell. These are both sold at ElectricBikeReview.com. And it's this company, Electric Bike Technologies, they do the ElectricTrike.com. They also do e-bikekit, and they sell these aftermarket. So maybe you already own one of these, frames, and you want to convert it. You can actually kind of get a DIY setup. If you want to buy it completely built like this, with everything completely set up, dialed in, they do offer that, as I'm saying, like $24.35. You pay an extra $350 for shipping. However, it's ready to ride. It's like comes in a huge box. All the wheels are on, no problem. I think they like to say the keys even, in the battery pack, which is right down here. It's one of my gripes about, a lot of kits and stuff. You have to put the key in, turn it to on like an ignition. You have to leave it there when you're riding. So you'll notice there's no other key on this. It does fold, and frankly, it's out of the way. It's not like you're going to kick it when you're pedaling or anything, but it does make it a two-step process. The battery can slide completely off. You can charge it on or off the bike. There's the charging port, sort of hidden under the little handle right there. Nice aluminum case. And here's the charger, 3 amp. It's relatively lightweight, about 1.5 pounds. A little bit more durable too. And one of the trade-offs on these like tricycle style recumbents versus the tadpoles is, you know, they don't really have like a rack on the rear, so you can't use panniers, you can't use a trunk bag quite as easily, but they have added bottle cage bosses, a pair on either side of the seat, so you could put a folding lock. And you know, I've been wearing my backpack with my camera gear in it and just wearing it on the front like a koala or something like that, and that's worked pretty well for me. And you know, have to excuse me, I've had a cold, kind of lost my voice, but I didn't want to miss out on these. I've been traveling around and just had a blast visiting their headquarters. Another big upgrade on the Eurus here is you've still got a linear pull brake in the front from ProMax, but in the back we've got 260 millimeter mechanical disc brakes versus only one in the middle on that. So, you know, you get a whole extra disc brake. That's a lot of extra stopping power. And these are whooshing e-bike specific levers here that have a motor inhibitor. So anytime you pull those, it's going to kill power. You don't have to worry about the bike getting out of control. And they've even got these little parking lock things that keep the bike from rolling away. A couple times I've been, you know, reviewing these and I'm like, let's go. And it's like I left the parking brake on and it kind of, you know, it inhibits the motor. So that's something to kind of keep in mind. I do want to mention it's neat how they've got this set up here. You can't like oversteer. See, there's this little bolt in here and it's designed to keep it on track. A couple times I've gone over bumps and I noticed that this steering rod bounced a little bit, just kind of like da-da-da-da-da, a little bit of rattle, but not too bad. And then there's our 12 magnet pedal assist sensor, and it works really well. You know, you start and the motor starts very quickly, and the same with stopping. So it's a very responsive setup. At any time you can override with the trigger throttle too. And you know, I asked about this. It's like, you know, what's the deal? Can you mount it behind the grip shifter, or, you know, and they're like, we can kind of mount it wherever. They're just experimenting with different setups. You can see on this one, they put it way inside, so it's inside the grip shifter before the brake lever. So it's something that can be, you know, kind of tinkered with a little bit, and they do try to set this up for your height and your size, and they dial everything in, including the controller. So, you know, one of the new sort of upgrades on this versus some of the older e-bike kits is the display panel here was really nice. It's from King Meter, not removable, but it does swivel forward and back to sort of reduce glare. Go ahead and activate it by holding this M. Very quickly just comes to life. It is backlit. If you hold the up arrow for a few seconds, that'll activate that. But they've designed it so that, you know, they have a few different battery packs here. That's the 36 volt 10. We're working with the 48 volt 10 here, and they have a different voltage curve. Like as the battery is depleted, the voltage drops, and that's really how they set up the battery indicator up here. So they're really proud, and they've kind of dialed it in so that it's very precise. But this display can work with other batteries, and this system's a little bit more open. So in the future, if you want to upgrade the battery or replace it or, you know, whatnot, it's not quite as proprietary, and you can set your own battery voltage curve, which is really neat. I mean, it feels like you own it a little bit more in that sense. So I wanted to, you know, sit down here, kind of show myself here in the cockpit, hanging out. You can see my hands are down a little bit more, so my whole, you know, center of gravity is a little bit lower. But I'm not super low, you know. This isn't as low as the tadpoles tend to be, where you're really, really back and low. This is still kind of more comfortable to me. I'm a little bit more upright. I appreciate that. If we look at the display panel, there's really 5 battery ticks. I know it looks like there's more in between, but it's 5. They sort of disappear in 20% increments. We have speed, miles per hour, and then we have assist. If we take it down to level 0, nothing happens, nothing works. So it's just basically like a bicycle at this point. And then from there, you know, you go all the way up through 5. 5 gives you the most power and the fastest speed operation, again up to 26 miles per hour. But you can actually dial it in if you want to. You can go in there and tell the pedal assist sensor to activate less abruptly. If you want it to be, you know, take a few pedal strokes before it kicks in, you can tell it, hey, I want to limit that top speed to 15 miles per hour. This is a trike. It's very stable, you know, but when you're going, you know, those wheels are cambered, but you can't turn like you can on a traditional bicycle. So you can kind of like, if you're really hot rodding, you can kind of get it on 2 wheels there. So that might be a reason to keep down the top speed. And then you can also take down the amperage. So that's another kind of a cool little extra, I think from like 20 amps to 6 amps or something like that. If I hit the M over here a couple times, I can cycle from showing the odometer to trip A and average speed, trip B and max speed. So there's great readouts. If you do want to enter those settings and change wheel size and all that other stuff, you just hold the up and the down at the same time for a few seconds and it enters. I'm fortunate I get to hang out with the team here, and I'm with Alec, who's an engineer at the company. How are you, man?
Hey, I'm good. Thanks for coming by today.
Yeah. I was hoping that you could tell me just a little bit more about the amperage that you said you could change the amps, right?
Yeah. You can control the amperage output, and you can save those settings. So if for some reason you wanted to set this up so that it would go slower, you can save it, and you can also put a speed limit on. You can turn it down to 10 miles an hour, for instance, if you want to, and then when you reach that speed, the motor will shut down until you drop below, kind of like a governor. And then Cord already showed you how you can turn down the speed as you go on the fly using the 5 separate levels, and that's all custom software for this system that we set up in order to give people more options for controlling the ride on the trike. These 2 trikes, they're really great for casual riders because you can control that speed, and this trike with the cambered wheels is really stable, so you have a lot of options.
It's cool. It's neat to have this kind of choice. I haven't reviewed too many electric trikes to begin with, and then to have the different price points and then different performance levels, even with the narrow tires. I mean, this doesn't have suspension or anything, but I found that this seating position is just more comfortable for me. So these are quickly becoming my favorite. I didn't even think about it before. I was just like, hey, it's a trike, and then I was like, wait a minute, those wheels are in a different spot. So
for a recumbent, these are pretty upright, so they're really great for like a bike path or something where you want to have your head up and be able to look around. They're not as much like the recumbents you might be used to, where you're really lying down, you're really aerodynamic. These guys let you sit up and be a little more comfortable.
But you're still probably more aerodynamic than if you're riding a traditional bicycle.
Definitely.
I've seen fairing adapters you can put on stuff like this, and of course you probably want to have some lights, maybe something on the back of your helmet, just to be extra careful when you're on the bike path. Was I correct about that? This one has kind of the sliding boom, whereas this one, it's more just the seat. Is that so that this is a stiffer frame?
Yeah, on this bike, you'll notice the tubes are oversized. So if
it's aluminum versus steel.
Really hard, so it gives you a really good performance there. The adjustability, if you look down here, is in the seat. So if you undo this quick release here, the seat slides forwards and backwards.
Look at that.
And that's kind of cool. And then to compensate, you can do the pins back here.
Yeah, you can just sort of slide that up and down.
Yep, slide it to a new position and drop them in, so you can kind of maintain the angle of the seat even as you go forward and backward. Whereas on this other one, you've got the boom adjustment here, and you've got the seat adjustment in the back.
Okay, and was I correct? Is this a steel one? This is a steel frame.
A steel frame.
So a little bit, I would say heavier, but I think we weighed this one at 72 pounds, this one's 76. And I think that's just because there's more hardware for shifting. You've got the bigger motor. Look at that torque arm, by the way. That's just designed so that you can handle all the forces and stuff of this giant motor. This is internally geared, by the way. So you do hear it a little bit more. And, I like that the cable doesn't protrude too much. You guys have really tucked it up here, because if you're riding, you don't want to accidentally have that get snagged. It's one of the little bit more vulnerable parts. Alec, I think I'm going to just hop on and pedal for a minute. Okay, so you just step over, sit down. Again, I like it. It's a little bit more upright like that. There you go. You can even see that wheel spin out sometimes. Really good turning. Oh, yeah. Really get going. Okay, it's always fun to get, you know, third-person perspective. You can see how he just sits down.
Yeah, on
gets
this
all
one I
set up.
find the underseat steering to be pretty comfortable on this bike. It's a little more relaxed on some that you'll find.
Yeah. We'll just ride side by side.
You see, I can really turn with those cambered wheels, even going pretty fast.
Really maneuverable. Cool. Thanks, man.
Yeah, thank you.
And on that one, the display is a little bit, you know, it's lower, it's a little bit more out of the way. But the display's, you know, pretty big. You can kind of see really easily, you know, how fast you're going and some of those other stats. That's the thing about the nice big display. Again, it's not removable, but you might want to be able to just drape your jacket over it or something like that if you have to leave it out. I've got all the dimensions back at the website so you can determine whether this will fit through your door and how you're going to store it. It's great that the battery is removable so that you can charge it separately and reduce some of the weight if you have to move it. I think that's about it. That's the Eurus electric trike recumbent from Electric Bike Technologies. For the full written review on this, some of the other pros and cons and things, I'll see you back at ElectricBikeReview.com. Of course, if you have this frame, maybe it's not electric, but you've used it, or maybe you bought this, I welcome you to chime in and, you know, share any expert advice. I know there's a, you know, it seems like a pretty dedicated following for this sort of like niche type of electric bike, and it's always tons of fun to get your feedback from you guys. So I hope you have fun out there, and of course, ride safe.